Hey folks, Aaron here, Wisconsin Family Podcast on a Monday, the second day of February 2026, and welcome to Super Bowl week if you are so inclined to care about either one of the two teams playing. I'll get into this in a second. Got a few things that I want to get through here today. Nothing overly pressing. Of course, the Packers did announce that Jonathan Gannon has been assigned the defensive coordinator position after we already knew this for over a week. But the announcements officially coming out from the Packers about Gannon and then about Goody and LaFleur and Russ Ball as well. So we're running it back and expecting different results. So what could possibly go wrong with that? Real quick, if you want to follow along on Twitter, you can most certainly do that at Wisconsin_fam. On YouTube, youtube.com/@WisconsinFamily1, the number one. That is where the podcast is housed. So always go there and follow and subscribe. And TikTok, you can follow along too. Search for Wisconsin Family. It's Wisconsin_family on TikTok. So those are all the ways that you can find us, and you can hit us up on any of those. And love to get to some of your comments here this week regarding the Super Bowl, regarding the Packers. But we'll see what comes. Got a few stories here. There was a good article today in Sports Illustrated by Bill Huber. So we'll go through that here momentarily. And we'll react as well somewhat because I was going to say we're going to react to the Goody, LaFleur, Russ Ball, Gannon news, but we don't need to do that because we've already been reacting to it for a couple of weeks because we knew that was coming. So we're going to be limited in that here today. And by the way, Joe Barry, unfortunately, keeps coming up in my Twitter feed, or X. Ian Rappaport, Dolphins have re-signed Joe Barry, their linebackers coach and run game coordinator, to a multi-year contract. So I'm looking to break out the holy water, the blessed crucifixes, anything I can get my hands on to get Joe Barry off my timeline because I don't want to see him anymore. And up until this point, I thought that Jeff Hafley was fairly smart until he extends Joe Barry. Yeah. That's about it. So the official news came out today. Jonathan Gannon is the defensive coordinator for the Packers, which again we already knew. But Matt LaFleur had a statement on it. Rob Domofsky on X had posted the quote. Matt LaFleur said, "We're thrilled to add Jonathan Gannon to our coaching staff. He possesses tremendous experience as an NFL coordinator and head coach. I'm confident that he will be an outstanding addition to our organization as well as a strong leader of our defense. We welcome Jonathan, his wife Gina, and their 3 children, Rocco, Lola, and Angelo, to the Packers and the Green Bay community." And I welcome Jonathan Gannon as well. Welcome to Green Bay. Welcome to Wisconsin. Don't be Joe Barry, and we will have minimal problems. No big deal. The Brewers, by the way, before I get back to more Packers stuff, the Brewers had some news today as far as their TV deal goes. They are amongst, 7 or 8 other teams who are going to be having their game broadcast produced by and broadcast by MLB. So in case you're confused on that, it's going to be similar to when it was on Bally Sports or FanDuel, whatever the name changes were, in the sense that you're going to be able to stream it off the app. I guess they're going to have an individual app, I think. Otherwise, I know you can stream it off of MLB TV, which normally you can get, and you can stream out-of-market games, but this year, for the Brewers at least, you'll be able to do that in-market. Or the games are going to be broadcast on what they call cable. I don't know exactly what that means because now with everything being streaming, some streaming services, for example, had FanDuel, some didn't. So that all remains to be seen. However, the main part of the news is that is being taken over by MLB and no longer going to be on FanDuel, which they have me blocked on social media. And all I did was very lightly poke fun of them one day when their terrible app wasn't working for like the 20th time in a week. And it was very light. I hardly did anything, hardly said anything, nothing worthy of blocking, but they blocked the paying customers. So at that rate, if somebody could please tell them that I'm happy that the Brewers are no longer on their crappy network, you could. I'd appreciate that. So let them know that we're happy about that. Packers really disappeared from public light after the season ended, I would say. Right? I mean, last year, Goody had a press conference to end the year, and I know LaFleur had a press conference the day after, but I feel like he usually has a more season-ending one. Maybe not, I don't know, but I know Goody didn't have one. We haven't heard anything from Ed Policy as well, and they announced on a Friday news dump at about 4 p.m., a little before that, last Friday, that Goody, LaFleur, and Russ Ball all got extensions to remain in their positions. So we're running it back and expecting different results, and I could see why that was a Friday news dump for the Packers, because overall, it's not going to be a popular overall decision. So the Packers decided to run it back with everyone. Goody and Ball and LaFleur and Policy, they all go out for beers or whatever they're doing. And outside of that, they have left the United States to some undisclosed location. Because obviously they knew that the decision that they were making was not a popular one. And it was very anticlimactic. This morning at 11 o'clock, the Packers tweet out, Packers named Jonathan Gannon defensive coordinator. Well, breaking news right off the bat on a Monday morning. Came out of left field, really. But I really don't have a problem with the Gannon hire. I know everybody wanted Jim Leonard, and that's fine. What I'm really curious on now, Jim Leonard is the defensive coordinator, first time in the NFL as a coordinator, and so give it about 3 or 4 years, let's say 2 years, and this is just going to be fun to observe in the Wisconsin sports media landscape, whether it be social media, television, radio. It's just going to be fun to watch, because you wait 2 or 3 years down the road, should be about the exact time that the Packers are firing Matt LaFleur finally. And at that time, it is quite possible that Jim Leonard, if he stays on his current trajectory, could be one of the most sought-after head coaching names in the NFL. And then in Wisconsin, you fire LaFleur, all bets are off. Everyone's going to want Jim Leonard, because that's already the way that the cookie crumbles. I don't have a major issue with Gannon being the hire. I don't know if he would have been available or not had they had a chance to talk to Leonard, but he's a guy that has experience. He has won a Super Bowl as the defensive coordinator, and now he's got that head coaching experience as well, which I know is something that LaFleur wanted, which makes sense. I get that. I get that you would want that. It is Super Bowl week, by the way. I posted a picture earlier, again, at Wisconsin_fam. You can follow along on X. Posted a picture of the Super Bowl 1996-97, Super Bowl 31, Reggie White going after Drew Bledsoe. So, you know what? I just found the other day, looking through a stash of old boxes, I found a VHS recording of Super Bowl 31. So that would be fun. I think we have one too of 32, but that one's not as fun to watch. I have half a mind to put that on during the regular Super Bowl. I love the Super Bowl, love football, but I don't love everything that comes along with the Super Bowl. But by the time you finally get to that game, to me, every year it feels like the Super Bowl is secondary. The actual game is secondary to the rest of the pomp and ceremony and commercials and halftime shows and national anthems and coin toss. It's like it's about anything and everything besides the game. So in all honesty, unless the Packers are in it, I really enjoy championship weekend that much more. 52 days until Brewers opening day. Most famous Brewer to ever wear number 52, CC Sabathia. I posted a video of that earlier today, too, of the Brewers making the playoffs after their long stretch of not. And I'll tell you what, It was only half a season with CC, but it was an incredible run, really. And it would be pathetic, so you can't do it. But when you look at the grand scheme of things in Brewer history, could you make an argument to retire CC Sabathia's number? I mean, it would be terribly embarrassing. And I guess it's for a franchise that doesn't have a whole lot of success, obviously. No World Series, not a ton of big name players to write home about. I mean, you look at the guys who are retired. Jackie Robinson's retired with everyone. Raleigh Fingers was a rental. CC was a rental. I mean, not a longer time for Raleigh Fingers, but you get what I'm saying. And then really, Euchre, not as a player, but as a broadcaster. And then Molitor, Yount. Ryan Braun should be on there, and I'll go die on that hill for you. But it would be a quite pathetic move, but, something to think about. It'll never happen, but, yeah. Speaking of Milwaukee, keeping Doc Rivers, so let's talk about the Bucks for 1 second before we get back into the Packers here. Keeping Doc Rivers is the most efficient way to tank if you're Milwaukee. Now, I've heard some people mention they think that Doc doesn't even want to be there. I would agree with that. He looks like he's checked out. I don't think he's got a whole lot of interest in being there. But keeping him is the most efficient way to tank because it's really easy and natural for them to lose. You just go out there and do what you've been doing. Simple. No problem. And yeah, Giannis, you know what? I don't know why Giannis would want to be in Milwaukee at this point. I don't think he will be for long. I don't know if it's going to be at the trade deadline. I just heard Doc Rivers, well, the day after the trade deadline is going to be my favorite day of the year. And whatever. Just get it over with. It's coming. Get it over with. And to be honest with you, I don't really trust what either side is saying at this point because you've got the national people, Shams, Sharania, and all the other people talking about it, trying to make it happen to have Giannis be traded out of Milwaukee. But then Giannis always comes out as well and says, well, I would never ask for a trade. At this point, where there's smoke, there's fire, and some of that stuff is manufactured, what happens in the national media, but there's something to it. And at this point, I don't really believe either side in the entire thing. I really don't. And you know what? To be honest with you, Giannis is partly to blame for like I said, I don't have any idea why Giannis would want to be a Buck right now at this point. But, part of this is on him because over the last handful of years, he's gotten the Aaron Rodgers treatment. The treatment that Rodgers got at the end in Green Bay, and to a more extreme example when he was with the Jets, where the Jets literally just gave him a red carpet. So, oh, hey, buddy, whatever you want, you got it. Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, everything. Mostly guys who didn't play. And it doesn't work out well. And Giannis is partly responsible for what's going on in Milwaukee as well. Just is. Packers losing a couple of pieces, coaching staff-wise. Dolphins hiring Sean Duggan as their defensive coordinator. So Jeff Hafley takes another, which isn't overly surprising. Vikings, they fire their GM, which is sad in my mind. He said he never thought that he was truly appreciated in Minnesota. Well, he didn't draft any Pro Bowlers in his time there. And I have a story here, which I think is funny. Where was it here? Yeah, this one from ESPN. The headline, Justin Jefferson. I just love chaos for the Vikings. It makes life great. Justin Jefferson, Vikings likely better if Sam Darnold stayed. Well, no kidding. But coming from wide receiver one, that's fun to hear. So I just want to pull you out a quote from this story. Justin Jefferson, wide receiver one, is out of the entire NFL. Everyone knows the difficulty of the quarterback position this year, how we were dealt it. But having a quarterback that already had a season under his belt with us, knew the plays, knew the playbook, knew the players, throwing to me, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, all these guys, I definitely feel like we would have done better. Yeah. He went on talking about how now Darnold is in the Super Bowl, Justin Jefferson. Oh, it's definitely tough to watch. It's tough to watch, he said. I mean, that just... The Vikings and the Bears' chaos and turmoil is my entertainment. So, GM gets fired in Minnesota, responsible for moving on from Darnold to the great J.J. McCarthy, which I wish many, many years of J.J. McCarthy in a Vikings uniform. Speaking of Darnold, from Pro Football Talk, Darnold is the favorite to win the Super Bowl MVP. So we'll get into more of the bets and some of the prop bets as the week draws closer to an end, and let's win some money on the Super Bowl this week. But Darnold is the MVP favorite, plus 120 odds, not too bad. As the story on Pro Football Talk says, it represents a remarkable rise for Darnold, who was dismissed as a draft bust with the Jets. You can't take anything that happens with the Jets seriously. Everything has to be taken with a grain of salt. That's what I said about Robert Saleh, too. I mean, I would have been fine. I would have loved if the Packers could have fired Matt LaFleur and brought in Robert Saleh. That would have been... Robert Saleh, I'd take him all day. All day. I'm not going to hold what happened with the Jets against him. But anyway, he was dismissed as a draft bust with the Jets, was benched by the Panthers. Again, what are we doing here? How can we declare anyone a draft bust after spending time with the Panthers? I mean, finally he goes with Kevin O'Connell, and he's obviously decent. You know, he's a backup with the 49ers and only available to the Seahawks last offseason because the Vikings decided not to keep him around. Love it. That works. I love it. I love this, G. I don't know. I really wish that they wouldn't have had to fire him. So there's an account on X, and there was some debate actually that got into this. The account that asked the question was Al the Boss 03. This was back on January 30th, and I just responded to it the other day. And there was actually a bit of debate in my mentions about it. The question was, name an athlete whose arrival changed everything for a franchise. I went Brett Favre. No, there was actually quite a few people who said Reggie White. Interesting debate. I'd have to go with Brett Favre since he touches the ball every time. I mean, you can't get more important than a quarterback. That being said, across the board, this is always true. Brett Favre doesn't win a Super Bowl without Reggie. And Aaron Rodgers doesn't win a Super Bowl without Charles Woodson. And if the Packers are to win a Super Bowl now, Jordan Love's not winning one without Micah Parsons. Now, you think about that, that's actually a reason to overlook some of this season with Matt LaFleur and bring him back. People talk about the injuries and say, well, I mean, because it does go both ways. Everyone looks at it and says, well, every team has injuries. And I said this too. I said, okay, so you're bringing LaFleur back because of the injuries that pummeled the team this year. Fine, but you're going to have injuries next year. You still need to find a way to overcome it. And that's what one of the big arguments is for moving on from LaFleur. However, what I would say is the flip side is true too, because you would also say that, yes, Favre's not winning a Super Bowl without Reggie White, and Rodgers isn't winning one without Charles Woodson. Well, okay, Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love aren't winning one without Micah Parsons. That's just what it is. When Micah Parsons goes down, that's Charles Woodson going down. That is Reggie going down, and you're not winning a Super Bowl at that point unless you really luck out and just get really hot. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay. One more, Ike Packers podcast on Twitter asked the question, Matt LaFleur, better or worse? This was a few days ago. Better or worse than the 7th seed next year? I'm going to probably go push. Say he will be the 7th seed. I'd be surprised if the Packers miss the playoffs completely. Some of it may depend on J.J. McCarthy and on the Vikings, but we'll see. But right now I'm going push. I'd be surprised if they don't make the playoffs, but higher than a 7th seed? What makes me think that they're going to be higher than a 7th seed? Not much. Okay. Good article today. Sports Illustrated. Bill Huber. Here's the headline. For Packers, now this is talking about the offseason, last offseason, and free agency. And there's just a few highlights I want to mention from this piece. Headline, for Packers, it was $132 million up in flames. So, the Packers last year spent $131.5 million on, I was like 9 players. The 2 biggest ones, obviously, Aaron Banks and Nate Hobbs, both of which struggle greatly. So here's a quick excerpt that I wanted to give here. Banks started 14 games. Now, this is from the Huber article. It says, Banks started 14 games. One exception was Week 18 at Minnesota. It's certainly not all because of him, but the Packers went from ranking 6th in yards per carry and 3rd in sack percentage in 2024 to 24th in yards per carry and 12th in sack percentage. So they went from 6th in yards per carry to 24th after giving Banks the big contract. And sack percentage, they went from 3rd to 12th. So that wasn't real great. And money not well spent. And part of the really bad thing, and normally, and I am a Goody supporter. I think that when you put up LaFleur and Goody right next to each other, Brian Gutekunst does a better job at doing his job than LaFleur does at his. However, he really screwed up on the Hobbs thing. Hobbs had 2 passes defended this year. Oh, well, he was hurt. Well, yeah, he was hurt. He's been hurt his entire career. And the thing that really hurts on the Hobbs injury is, think about this. The reason that he had to get Hobbs and sign a free agent cornerback was to supplement the poor room that they already had, which in part was because of his drafting of the secondary, and particularly Kevin King. Right? I mean, because King he jetted off this last year. Wasn't good enough. And then the guy you replace him with isn't good enough. So that's not good. Not good right there. Only 2 passes defense in 2025. Now, again, though, the NFL landscape, you can and need to use free agency. You can and need to use free agency. And here's an example of it. From Huber's article, he says, Super Bowl teams spent wisely. The Super Bowl teams opened the vault and were rewarded for it. The Patriots spent $364.4 million on 19 players. Seahawks, meanwhile. The Seahawks were 4th in the NFL with $205.6 million on 16 players. So the 2 teams in the Super Bowl spent big time on free agency. Now, Goody is not Ted Thompson. He does spend more than him, but enough? Enough to supplement the poor drafts that he's had? No, certainly not. Now, of course, spending big isn't the be-all, end-all, though it could be if you have a quarterback, which the Packers do, but I just got to get one more jab in at the Vikings, because the Vikings spent the 2nd most on free agents, according to Huber, $269.5 million that they took, and they gave it into the hands of J.J. McCarthy, which is why their general manager is no longer there. But I think everyone agreed that besides McCarthy, the Jets really, or I'm sorry, the Vikings really did have a Super Bowl caliber roster just outside of McCarthy. And they screwed it up. But what's great about that, if you're the rest of the NFC North, is that they had it. They had it right there. And they threw it away. All right, we'll have more for you coming up tomorrow. I appreciate you joining here, the Wisconsin Family Podcast. Again, I am Aaron. Follow along on Twitter at Wisconsin_fam. Subscribe on YouTube. Search for Wisconsin Family. You want the direct link? It's going to be at Wisconsin_fam. No, that's Twitter. At Wisconsin Family 1. All one word on Twitter. Follow along on TikTok as well. Easy. Search Wisconsin Family. I'm going to come right up there. All right. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.